What's going on, you guys? It's Royce Jacob. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Waves Weekly. It's a video series I post every Sunday where we cover recent news and current events that I believe relate to the markets. We'll also look over a few charts and I'll just let you guys know what I'm thinking about the markets overall going into next week. So as always, we'll cover each topic that we're going to be discussing and then we'll dive into each one individually. In front of us, we have the SPY open, good old S&P 500. It's a good way to sum up the equity markets. So we'll take a look at this. We'll kick off the video with some good old market analysis. I'll let you guys know what I'm thinking going into next week, so the short term. And today we're actually going to be focusing on TA, okay, so technical analysis. If you guys have watched my previous videos, you know that I put technical analysis very secondary to fundamentals, especially in this market. But it's always good to mix it up every once in a while and look at the TA, take the technical analysis into consideration, especially considering I have been giving my fundamental perspective a lot over this past week. So I don't want to exhaust you guys. I don't want to bore you guys. I definitely don't want to repeat myself. So we'll mix it up a little bit. We'll look at some TA. This is a great write-up on TradingView I found. So I'm going to go over this with you guys. We will then go on to looking at an article on psychology, all right? And the way I want to tie this into kind of the market talk is because psychology, as I mentioned before, is so important in the markets, all right? It's not only about the technicals, definitely not only about the fundamentals, it's about psychology as well. I did mention that in my last video. Psychology is so important, guys, okay? So we'll take a look at this. I'll let you guys know how that ties into the markets in my mind, but we'll get to that when we get to it. We will then go on to talk Hertz, the poster child of the Robinhood day trader revolution. Kind of just kidding about that, but there's definitely some reality to it. We will talk Hertz. We're going to talk about this bankrupt Hertz gets approval to sell up to $1 billion in stock. Insane. So we'll cover that. That's a good way to just sum up the craziness in the markets right now. We'll take a look at that, and then we'll look at, we'll go on to good old Bitcoin. You guys know I can't make a Waves Weekly without talking Bitcoin. So we will look at this little article about Bitcoin. It's just kind of this is a very fundamentally driven article, or just the message I want to convey with this article is very fundamental in terms of Bitcoin. But then we'll go on to the Bitcoin price chart. We'll take a look at Bitcoin. Again, this is very, very ground level TA right here that I want to go over with you guys on. But Bitcoin, as opposed to general markets or equity markets right now, is very highly fueled by TA, and a lot of traders dictate that market. So TA in Bitcoin is actually very important, and you should take TA in Bitcoin into consideration. So we'll take a look at it from that perspective, and then we will get onto the good old content of the week. The realistic content is actually Morning Brew, which this article is in. It's a newsletter, so that's kind of the providing value content. But content Avatar: The Last Airbender. A lot of you guys might know it now that it's been recently introduced to Netflix, but I've probably watched the series 4 times over, and I've ultimately come to the conclusion that this is the best series ever created. So that's a bold statement. Trust me, I know, but I will rationalize that once we get to it. So stay tuned to the end if you want to hear that argument at all. All right, so again, SPY. If we go into this, we'll see this island reversal, all right? So this is what's called an island reversal. I actually wasn't familiar with this until I read through this article and this analysis. Again, you guys, I'm not a wizard at TA, but I'm very thankful for people like this on TradingView, very highly TA-driven individuals who know their shit and who I can learn from, okay? And I'm always learning. We should always be learning, and this article is fun to go over. But this is an island reversal, all right? So you see gaps here and here. And I don't even need to look up an island reversal. It's obvious that's an appropriate name for this because it is a floating island right here. And a lot of times gap, and you can see that here on this chart. All right, so this is the hourly. We saw a gap up on June 5th and then that gap down on June 11th when the market tanked, all right? So gap trading is, to a lot of technical analysts, definitely a viable way of trading. And a lot of times they take gaps into consideration. So let's read over this, all right? Hello investors, today's Friday, and as usual, I'll do a complete MTFA, and I invite you to follow me. That's all this stuff. Okay, SPX did an island reversal chart pattern. SPX is pretty much the same as SPY. And it met support at 3K, pink line. It retested the black line and did what seems to be a double bottom at the pink line. This is curious because it shows the bulls still have some strength. Now let's see the daily chart. So this is the daily chart. Homing pigeon, piercing line triggered. Again, there's a lot of TA terminology in here. I don't even know. I've never even heard of a homing pigeon, to be honest. Let's not worry about that. Let's move on, though, because this is kind of the important part I want to show you. There is a lot of stuff going on here. This guy's might be foreign. The price closed near the 21 EMA, which is exponential moving average, after it hit the purple trend line. Also, the bears couldn't keep the prices under the pink line at 3K. Remember that double bottom in the hourly chart? And we see a homing pigeon candlestick pattern. I don't even know what that is, but hold on. We could see a breakout to any direction, but is near a support zone. Now the weekly chart. All right, so this is actually the part of this analysis that I wanted to show you guys the most. Things seem very bearish from here. There's a bearish engulf pattern telling me that the sharper pullback waits for us. What's the target? Well, we could see SPX sinking to at least a 21 EMA or the 61% Fib retracement, which is Fibonacci retracement. And that's the Fibonacci sequence, or the Fibonacci, what's it called? Oh my God, why can't I? Indicator. Fibonacci indicator, I'm sorry, is one of the most I put a lot of weight on the Fibonacci indicator, okay? And that's just using the Fibonacci sequence from the very top of a chart. So you would draw the top line up here, bottom line right here, and then it brings up the Fibonacci sequence, okay? And that is good because, again, that kind of plays into psychology, and that plays into just law of mathematics, basic law of mathematics within the psychology of a chart, okay? At least that's how I view it. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. I didn't articulate that very well. But I think that to pretty much sum up this thought, I think that this area is a very likely area for the SPY to actually fall to. And again, a lot of the Dow Jones, NASDAQ, they all follow a pretty similar pattern. All traditional equity markets, they'll all probably do a similar thing, but we're looking at the SPY right now. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it pull back, the SPY at least. It's currently sitting at just over 3,000. It would not be surprising to see it hit like the 2650 to 2950 mark. Obviously from 3,000, 2950 isn't a huge gap down. But this makes sense from, again, Fibonacci's, it would actually, this Fibonacci sector would actually play well into this area where it was bouncing around for a while before the recent spike up that it saw a couple weeks ago, okay? So it did spend a lot of time around this like $2,900 area. Will definitely come down below that in my opinion. But there's also a bullish case, okay? So to sum this up, on Monday, I do think that we'll probably see a green day on Monday. Again, you guys remember this is only my opinion. I could be completely wrong. The market could tank, but I think on Monday, especially if you look at the Stochastic Rsi, again, fundamentals definitely take priority, but it's always a good sign just looking at Stochastic RSI and RSI, okay? These are the only two indicators I choose to use. I know there's VWAP, whatever you guys, you little day traders are learning about, but I personally like RSI. I think that's the single most valuable indicator to use, and there's not a lot of times when the RSI crosses over and begins that trend up that you don't see at least somewhat of a move up. Okay, so you can see the RSI just crossed over. It's beginning its trend up. The traditional, this is Stochastic RSI, this is traditional RSI. The traditional RSI is bending up on a 4-hour chart. 4-hour is definitely over the hourly or 2-hourly, whatever, or even daily. I really like the 4-hour chart in terms of kind of the midterm to long-term like trends of things. Okay, so 4-hour stochastics curling up, RSI curling up, that's a bullish sign. That a lot of times points to at least a short move up or somewhat of a move up. So on Monday, from a technical perspective, I do think we will see a little bounce. But fundamentally, again, things aren't, I'm going to try to keep this technical. I don't do this much, so I'm stumbling a little bit. Forgive me. But I think we will see a bounce up on Monday, and then for the rest of the week, because I feel like news is going to be bad. And again, fundamentals always way down. I'm trying to do my best to give a technical argument right now, but just fundamentally, intuitively, I think next week is going to be a rough week in terms of news. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bounce up on Monday. There's some optimism from the huge crash we saw this past week. Monday we see a little bounce up, and then maybe Tuesday it's flat. But I think Wednesday to Friday are going to be pretty red, and then we will continue a trend downward, or at least sideways, for a while. All right, so that sums that up. Let's read over this psychological article. Okay, so this is from Morning Brew. It's a great newsletter. This is, I'll just kind of cover this. This is my valuable content of the week. So Morning Brew, it's a great morning newsletter. It's not like my newsletter. It just kind of covers, it is market focused and business focused, but it just covers a whole lot of good things in regard to kind of the markets and just kind of the entire world. But it's written with witty humor. All the writing is very smart, but insightful at the same time. So I really like this. I think you guys will like this too. I think it'll provide you guys a lot of value. So I gave my referral link down below in the description if you guys want to download it. I don't know exactly what I get for referring you guys. It's probably something. I mean, if you guys don't want to use that, you can just Google it. But I mean, I'd appreciate it if you use that link because I'll probably get something out of it. So if you're interested in that, sign up. But let's get into this article with good old Mr. Patrick Starr. According to health psychologist Elke van Hoof, worldwide lockdowns brought on by COVID-19 have set the stage for an arguably the largest psychological experiment ever conducted. As they cope with isolation, an economic recession, and the stress about the virus itself, 45% of the U.S. adults told the Kaiser Family Foundation their mental health got worse. The hypothesis: when all this is over, researchers will know how well human brains cope with long-lasting traumatic events. Without the benefit of frequent human contact, established routines, and in-person mental health care, it doesn't help when it comes to government support. All right, so we're not going to go into that, but it's just important to think about this, all right? And we'll always tie it back into the fundamentals, all right, and how this relates to the market fundamentally. A lot of people think that when we open back up, when these states open back up, which is already going bad in terms of COVID cases, but a lot of people think that when states open back up, everything opens back up, everything resumes back to normal, as it was at the beginning of this year. And I've thought the whole time, and the more I learn, the more research I do, the more I realize that that's for sure not going to be the case. There's no chance that we open back up and travel just resumes, restaurants fill back up, small businesses get all the business that they had over the past, or at the beginning of this year and in previous years. There's just no chance. The psychology around people has changed. We've been cooped up for 3 months. This pandemic has led a lot of people to become very psychologically unwell, all right? Not a lot of people. Obviously, I assume a lot of you are good. There are a lot of people who are good. I would say the majority are good. But there's still, it's left a scar, even if you don't realize it, even if it's a subconscious scar. This lockdown and this pandemic and just this global crisis overall has left a psychological scar to some extent, and consumption will definitely be down, or definitely down. I mean, maybe not down from now, because obviously it won't be down as things reopen and everything has been on complete lockdown, but it will not get back to previous levels. And that's just something to be careful about in the markets. Again, like in the Robinhood video we just talked about yesterday, it's great that people are using their money to invest and make them money as opposed to consuming. But it's kind of that's like a catch-22, right? If you're investing in companies that produce products that you won't consume, but you're investing in the companies that are producing products that you then won't consume, that's a weird cycle that you find yourself in. And it will be interesting to see how, like, obviously the tides are shifting, the fundamentals and just like the ground, the grounds that the market is based on is changing. So it will be very interesting to see how that plays out. But I just want to remind you guys of this. Always just keep in mind that psychology plays such a crucial role in the markets and finance and everything, literally everything. Psychology plays a crucial role in everything, okay? So keep that in mind. Let's move on to Hertz. Is a little more real news, all right? So bankrupt Hertz gets approval to sell up to $1 billion in stock, but experts expect equity to be wiped out. This is not investing, it's gambling, says one CIO, while credit site says it's a head scratcher. The market dislocation wrought by the coronavirus pandemic has a poster child in Hertz Global Holdings, Inc. A bankruptcy court late Friday approved Hertz's request. That's crazy. It was up 37% on Friday. I didn't even see that, to be honest. That's insane. Request to sell up to $1 billion in stock, eh? The car rental company appears to be seizing on a wave of intense speculative interest in its shares since it declared bankruptcy late last month, drowning in debt and hit hard by the global restrictions on travel designed to slow the spread of coronavirus. Hertz stock topped a popularity chart among Robinhood app users on Friday. This is absolutely insane. If you guys caught the Robinhood video I posted yesterday, if you didn't check it out, I was really proud of that video. I thought that was a solid video. But I did show a chart similar to this, talking about the S&P and S&P weighted stocks. Okay, but this is a chart of the Robinhood users who have bought Hertz. That's insane. And this again just feeds into the belief that retail investors are just dictating not necessarily the whole entire market in this example, but stocks like Hertz, like that one day it shot up 140%. It it was dictated by Robinhood traders. Look at the amount of Robinhood users that went on to buy Hertz stock. And this is probably 100. This is, I have to imagine, 160,000. It's obviously not 160 users, but or maybe 1.6 million. Depends how this chart is based. But that said, look at the spike in that. Like, Hertz comes to an all-time low. Robinhood users think it's a hot buy just because it's low, although the fundamentals suck, and they buy it up, causing it to 2x in price. All right, but obviously the Hertz is bankrupt. You guys look into what happens in bankruptcy. It's not good. It doesn't warrant you buying the stock just because the stock price is low. But that's obviously what happened. Again, watch the Robinhood video. I'm not going to rant on that again. I'll just read this quote. Unless a genie or a lamp showed up the collateral pool, we expect the eventual equity value will be zero. Okay, so Hertz pretty much wants to sell $1 billion in shares. That's bankrupt, and that's almost criminal of them, because if they do that, there's just going to be Robinhood traders who buy it up, and then it's eventually going to be worth $0, and these poor kids who don't know what they're doing are going to have Hertz stock that's worth literally nothing. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you were smart enough to know this, but please, if you're thinking about buying Hertz, just don't. All right, that's investment advice. Don't buy Hertz. I'll give you that's the only direct investment advice I will give on this channel ever, is don't buy Hertz. All right, so we'll wrap that up there. Move on to good old Bitcoin. I like this article. Why Bitcoin is a silent protest against corrupt governments everywhere. I'm not going to read it completely, but there is the BLM movement, Black Lives Matter, right on. That's sick. It's just covering that, but the kind of since the creation, I'll read this. Since the creation of Bitcoin 11 years ago, a growing number of people have been choosing to opt out of traditional financial system, the central source of power for our governments. They are turning towards a new monetary system, one that is not controlled by any single authority, but is rather decentralized and run by a network of computers. As a child star born in the Soviet Union, having witnessed the fall of government, hyperinflation, and a run on the banks, all before the age of 10, Bitcoin also piqued my interest. Bitcoin was born as a movement by the people for the people. And so I wanted to give the community supporting this movement an opportunity to be heard, sourcing the key ideas in this article through Twitter. Bitcoin is a protest against corruption. And this is the key fundamental value I wanted to drive home from this article. Bitcoin is a protest against corruption. All right, so again, the BLM movement, the lockdowns, there's so much civil unrest right now. A lot of people aren't happy with their local governments, with their federal governments. Their money is becoming deflated. Their money is losing value as the governments print more and more of it. And people are becoming very uneasy and very unhappy with their governments. And that's why I think Bitcoin, I'm going to try to focus a lot more content around Bitcoin this coming week. Hopefully it does well, because that incentivizes me, obviously, on YouTube to create more content about it, just being real with you guys. But I love Bitcoin. If you have been following the channel, some of the first videos I've actually made in regard to investing on this channel were about Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin. I love what it stands for. I love its properties. It's one of the most brilliantly designed technological inventions of this lifetime. And it serves such a solid purpose, especially in this pandemic. Like, this pandemic is just what it has done for Bitcoin is pretty much just light a fire under it in terms of the fundamental prospects for Bitcoin and the value that Bitcoin provides for a lot of these nations. If you live in the US, you might not be familiar with it, but there's so much hardship. Like, the US, if you think the US is bad, there's places across the globe that don't have sound monetary systems and that don't have the global reserve currency as their primary currency, which is all of them but the US, that are in very hard places right now. And when their fiat currencies are being debased and everything is falling to shit in their country, Bitcoin is a store of value. Bitcoin's a global currency. Bitcoin is borderless, all right? That's the beauty of Bitcoin. If you have internet access, you have access to Bitcoin. And that's so crucial. Again, if you live in the US, it doesn't affect you just yet, but there's so many places around the world that are being so heavily hit economically, even more so than the US. And it's so awesome that Bitcoin provides a store of value that you can keep your money safe in while your fiat currency or whatever fiat currency you use in your country falls to zero as more and more of it's printed. Okay, so that's just a good, especially, again, there's so much civil unrest right now. There's so much uneasiness with a lot of governments at all levels. So Bitcoin is a hedge to the governments. And I'm not going to say I'm not an anarchist at all. I love the government. I love the USA. Right now, I shouldn't say I love the government right now. I support the government just as, I think they're stupid sometimes. I think they're stupid a lot of the time, to be honest. But just as a U.S. citizen, as someone who does love this country, and I'm so blessed to live in the United States, Hawaii especially, I do want to be as optimistic and supportive as possible, even though sometimes they make it very hard to be. Okay, so that all said, let's look at the Bitcoin chart. Bitcoin, from a technical perspective, again, I told you guys Bitcoin, the technicals on Bitcoin are very important, okay, because Bitcoin is pretty much fueled by traders. There's a lot of hodlers. There's more people holding their bags with super strong hands. Bitcoin probably has the strongest bag holders across any asset class. But the day-to-day price action is heavily dictated by traders. So if you are going to trade Bitcoin, know that. Don't just try to trade it based on instinct. You need to understand TA if you want to trade Bitcoin, okay? If you want to hold it, I definitely support that. That's what I do. I dollar cost average, so on every dip down, I'll buy more. But I don't try to trade Bitcoin, all right? There's far more competent people, people with crazy algorithms and crazy systems out there who trade Bitcoin. So my word of advice to you, just try not to trade it. Honestly, just buy the dips and wait for it to rip. Wait for it to go to the moon, just like I am. But Bitcoin is printing this very significant ascending triangle. Yeah. So this is printing a very significant ascending triangle. Ascending triangle, traditionally, historically, a bullish pattern. So it will be interesting to see how this plays out. So on June 20th, I assume June 17th, June 20th. So sometime next week, this will play out. We'll have to see if it again, most of the time an ascending triangle does break to the upside. And again, with all the fundamental just forces behind Bitcoin, I'm bullish. I'm permanently bullish on Bitcoin, to be completely honest. I'd be surprised if it breaks this triangle and goes down. Because again, even the RSI is low right now. Again, on the 4-hour chart, move my fat head out of the way. The RSI is currently sitting at about a 40, which is, I mean, relatively low. That's stable. It's not very low, but it's pretty low, pretty stagnant. It's under 50, so it's on the lower side. Again, I wouldn't be surprised to see Bitcoin at least come back up to the $9,800 region. And then again, over the course of this week, we will see if it does break to the upside like I expect it to. But again, it could break down. We'll have to see how the markets play out. As Bitcoin is becoming more institutionally adopted, it is becoming slightly more correlated with traditional asset classes like the S&P. So like on, when was it, Thursday? When the market tanked, Bitcoin tanked as well. All right, so Bitcoin, which is traditionally a non-correlated asset, which means that if say the equity markets fall, Bitcoin won't fall. It is becoming, as more hedge funds are gaining access to Bitcoin and exposure to Bitcoin, they will slowly become a little more correlated with traditional asset classes like the S&P. But hopefully that kind of breaks, that trend breaks again. I don't know. We'll have to see how this plays out. Again, times are crazy. It's very hard to predict exactly what will happen. So I don't want to speak in absolutes by any means ever, especially right now. But I do expect Bitcoin, just to sum this thought up, I expect it to break out sometime this week and break out of this ascending triangle. Ascending triangle, obviously you can see the trend lines here. It's a flat line of resistance on the top, and then just lowering or hiring lows as it's climbing up. Okay, so that's the I assume you guys know that, but that's just what makes up an ascending triangle. So hopefully it does break out of that sometime this week. I expect it to. I will be surprised, to be completely honest, if it breaks down. But again, all the fundamentals, all the stars are aligning for Bitcoin in my mind. Let's shoot this thing to the moon. Hopefully it does well. For all you guys who want to see a Riot analysis, I will make a Riot analysis sometime next week. Riot is highly volatile. I will give you guys a quick take on it right now, just because I know a lot of you guys have been asking. So I mean, I shouldn't say a lot, but a good amount of you guys have been asking about this. Riot is so volatile right now. The only thing I will say right now is that it has broken this upward trend line that it has created. So it has broken this trend line. All right, it has broken out of this. So we can see here it was following this roughly this trajectory for the past month, and it did just break out of that on Thursday when the market tanked. It was down 30%. That's insane. So that's a bummer. I do expect it will probably, what's most likely in my mind right now, you know what, let's move this to like right here. So what's most likely to happen, that looks a little more right there. What's most likely to happen is that it will come up, unless Bitcoin does really well. Again, Riot is a Bitcoin mining company. The success of Bitcoin is definitely has an impact on the success of Riot. But I would expect Riot to probably come up to this, what was its line of support, and bounce off that and maybe start using that as line of resistance. But I do still think Riot will climb. Again, super low market cap. Riot has so much potential ahead of it if Bitcoin does do well and if they continue to do well themselves as a company. All right, so I will make more analysis on Riot in the future, but that is to come. Hopefully it doesn't tank, because then I don't really want to make an analysis about it. So we'll see how that plays out, all right? Content of the week, what you've all been waiting for, all right? So Avatar: The Last Airbender. Again, I have probably watched this series 4 times through. Just started watching it again now that it was released on Netflix. Last time I watched it all the way through was probably about 1.5 years or 2 years ago. I love this series. It's probably one of the best series. No, that's the argument I'm making. This is the best series ever made. Again, watch Game of Thrones, watch Billions. I love those series. They both have something to offer. But every time I watch Avatar, I appreciate it even more. The artwork, the cinematography, the production, the underlying moral values that it holds, and the wisdom in the storytelling is insane. Like, this is by far the best series. Again, the artwork is beautiful. The story is fantastic. This is the series, I've said this many times before to like friends and family. This is the series, if I could show my kids only one series, if they could see one cartoon, literally one series for their entire lives, I'd show them Avatar. Because again, even as I watch it as I grow older, I gain more and more the underlying moral values in the story of Avatar, in the storyline, is insane. Like, there's so much wisdom. It's that old Japanese wisdom, and that old like traditional wisdom that Avatar really conveys super well. So I highly recommend you guys checking it out. You guys might think I'm a nerd for loving this, but do not knock it until you give it a shot. All right, go watch the first season. It's a little older, so it's a little harder to watch just because the animation is a little dated, but get into the later seasons, get into the later episodes. This series is absolute fire. If you don't like it, I don't like you. I'll just say that straight up. If you don't like this series, I don't like you. Don't watch my videos anymore. So go check that out. I highly recommend. I'm just kidding. If you guys don't like it, that's all right. To each their own. But I personally love it. Please let me know if you guys have watched this and you like it, or if I encourage you to watch a couple episodes. Let me know what you think about it, because again, I love this series. It's such a good series. So we will call it there, guys. Again, catch it on Netflix if you guys didn't read this title by now, but free on Netflix. Watch it. Highly recommended. 10 out of 10. Okay, so we'll call it there, guys. I appreciate you guys watching. Again, drop a comment down below if you think I missed anything, or if you want to talk about anything we covered today. Check out the complete portfolio product if you haven't already. It's literally exactly as it states, complete breakdown of my portfolio and newsletter that I send out on every trading day, talking about the trades I made and just rationalizing my thoughts about the current market and why I'm making the trades I'm making. Check that out if you want. If not, no worries. But we will call it there, guys. Until next time, always remember, take action, make waves. Peace.